Imagine a world where silence is broken only by screams, a world where iron and wood weren't tools of progress but instruments of pain. Today I invite you on a journey into darkness, into a past where human ingenuity created something unparalleled. Machines that did not build but destroyed, machines that broke bodies and crushed spirits. This is not just a story of history, it is a story of fear. Fear that ruled societies, from the humblest peasants to the grandest royal courts. Torture devices were more than tools, they were symbols of power, obedience, and unrelenting truth. But what were these machines? Who designed them? And why were they used with such precision and cruelty? The answers to these questions will not bring comfort, because, as they say, the truth hurts. And today, we unveil it. Step with me into chambers where iron spoke stories never meant to be forgotten. Stories that reveal the darkest corners of the human mind. This is the world of torture devices. The Iron Maiden, the cold embrace of death. The Iron Maiden, a medieval symbol of agony. This upright sarcophagus wasn't designed for swift death, but for torture that broke both body and spirit. Its spike-lined doors closed with a deafening clang as sharp needles pierced the victim's flesh. Not deep enough to kill instantly, but just enough to make every second unbearable. It was used on heretics, traitors, and witches. Victims often died from infections caused by their wounds, not from the injuries themselves. Every breath, every slight movement brought waves of excruciating pain. Sometimes it took hours, other times days, for death to finally come as a release. And yet, it was perhaps a greater tool of fear than of death. Just seeing it was enough to make many confess to crimes they never committed. Fact or fiction, it doesn't matter. Its name has endured as a warning that power without mercy leads only to darkness. The breaking wheel, a deceptively simple name for a tool that turned human suffering into a spectacle. This wasn't just an execution device. It was a stage where agony became entertainment. The victim was tied to the wheel, their arms and legs stretched over its surface. Then the executioner would take a heavy iron bar or hammer and methodically shatter their limbs, one bone at a time. With each swing, the sound of cracking bones echoed through the crowd. Every strike was deliberate, ensuring maximum pain while avoiding a swift death. Once the victim's body was broken and twisted beyond recognition, the wheel was hoisted upright for all to see. They weren't just killing a person, they were sending a message. This is what happens to those who defy power. The breaking wheel was reserved for the worst offenses, treason, murder, or even challenging the king's authority. But often, the so-called crime was nothing more than being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It didn't matter. Once you were condemned, the wheel showed no mercy. The pain wasn't over when the hammer stopped. Victims were often left tied to the wheel, their mangled bodies exposed to the elements. Birds and insects feasted on their wounds while they hung, alive for days. Death came slowly. Starvation, infection, or sheer exhaustion finally took its toll. But the true horror wasn't the wheel itself. It was the crowd. Hundreds would gather to watch, to cheer, to revel in someone else's suffering. The breaking wheel didn't just destroy bodies, it twisted humanity itself. The breaking wheel is gone now, its days as a tool of torture and execution long past. But its story lingers, a haunting reminder of how easily justice can become a spectacle, and cruelty a form of power. The Spanish boot, a crushing grip of despair. At first glance, it looks unassuming. No sharp spikes, no chains, just a simple metal frame. But it was this very simplicity that made it one of the most terrifying torture devices of the medieval era. The Spanish boot, a tool that crushed not just bones, but also hope. The victim's legs were placed inside the metal frame. Then the tightening began. Screws were slowly turned, forcing the frame to squeeze tightly around the ankles, legs, or even knees. The pressure grew stronger and stronger. First the skin tore, then the bones cracked. It wasn't a quick process. It could take hours for the leg to be completely destroyed. The victim felt every millimeter of the pain. Every turn of the screw brought a fresh wave of agony, unstoppable, and relentless. The Spanish boot was often used on those accused of theft, treason, or failing to repay debts. During the Inquisition, it became a favored tool for extracting confessions. Victims would admit to anything under its crushing grip, just to make the suffering stop. It wasn't always about death. Death came later, when the victim could no longer stand on their shattered legs. Sometimes they were released, only to be haunted by the pain for the rest of their lives. It was a simple device, but its effectiveness was devastating. The grip gave no chance for escape, and its slow process amplified the pain. The victim felt every moment, every snap of bone, and if they survived, their legs were left forever disfigured. The Spanish boot wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol of how far people were willing to go to maintain power and control. Today, the Spanish boot is displayed as a reminder of darker times when fear ruled over justice. It may now be just a relic, but its story lives on. A story of pain that knew no limits. The mask of shame, a punishment that broke you. This mask was not just about shame, it was about pain. Firmly strapped to the head, its sharp edges cut into the skin, with every movement bringing new torment. The mask's weight exhausted the neck, and the long nose made rest or comfort impossible. If the mask had bells, every step rang out, announcing your punishment to all nearby. There was no escape from the stares and ridicule of the crowd. Every jingle was a reminder that you had failed, at least in the eyes of others. This mask wasn't just to humiliate you. It was designed so you would feel its presence every second, on your soul and your body. The chastity belt, a symbol of medieval mistrust and obsessive control. Legend has it that jealous husbands used it to protect their wives' virtue. But was it true or just a myth? Historians agree that most chastity belts date back to the 19th century, when they became curiosities of the Victorian era. Some might have been used for extreme control, but evidence of their widespread use is weak. If they were real, those forced to wear them would have endured not protection, but pain, wounds, and humiliating suffering. Imagine wearing this device, metal cutting into the skin, causing infections, and a constant, unrelenting discomfort. Not a symbol of protection, but a cruel tool embodying all the worst that mistrust could create. Whether myth or reality, the chastity belt reminds us that when mistrust and jealousy take control, the result is always suffering. And it forces us to ask, what other stories from history do we accept as truth, simply because they've been repeated enough to seem real? Human cruelty and ingenuity are so vast that they simply cannot fit into one video. That's why we'll continue in the next episode, where we'll explore even more unsettling stories and tools from history. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share it with your friends, and hit subscribe. Your support helps us create more episodes and even better videos. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.